Last week, I was in Montreal for a course on Ministry of Supervision in order to become hopefully an accredited supervisor for internship and field placement within the United Church of Canada. I'm not done yet. It was just the first leg of my training. More will have to be done in the coming months. We had a great group of ministers coming as far as Red Deer and Prince Edward Island. We learned much about the theory of effective supervision, and we tried to apply it through role-playing and case studies. And during the whole week, we gave feedback and affirmation to one another. And one question popped over and again to the point it became almost a cliche. Where was God in all of this? Where was God in all of this? Our group did not coin that phrase. Many have asked the same question before us. Some wrestled with it 2 weeks ago after the horrible murder of 49 members of the LGBTQ community in Orlando. For others, this question came to them as it came to Elijah in today's text. In this morning passage, the prophet is once again a hunted man on the run, hiding from Queen Jezebel. Elijah seems to be one of those biblical characters that are always in the middle of some troubles or controversies. However, his eventful life finally caught up on him to the point where he's ready simply to give up. He's so exhausted and desperate that he tells God that he wants to die. Under a solitary broom tree, he begins to speak to the Holy One. And he says, all that I've done seems so hollow. Oh, I love you, God. I work hard as a prophet. I told the truth. I put my life in jeopardy. And for what? Sweet nothing. The other Israelites are not even trying to come back to you. They have forsaken your covenant, threw down your altars, and killed your prophets. And yet, to be totally honest, the worst part of all is that I'm disappointed at you, oh God. You left me alone. You sent no one to help me. You remained silent in my struggles. If only I could have met you face to face, maybe it would have been different, but whatever. God hears Elijah's plea. It tells him, go out and stand on the mountain before the Lord, for the Lord is about to pass by. And I can only imagine running outside and remembering the stories of the past, expecting to encounter the Holy One in a big and spectacular manifestation of the divine. And we have to admit that Elijah was an expert on this matter. Up to this moment in the story, he already predicted the beginning and the end of a 3-year drought. He also raised a dead child back to life, and then he defeated alone 450 prophets of Baal, the gods of the Philistine, by calling down God's presence in a fire which burned the entire altar he made up with cut up bulls and stone and all in all. That is big and spectacular. So Elijah is outside his cave, and he witnessed a great wind. And the text says, so strong that it was splitting mountains and breaking rocks in pieces. And personally, as a good United Church minister, my first inclination would have been said, wow, Let's explore the presence of God in this manifestation of nature. Let's write a theological reflection. Let's write a prayer for and with the wind. But as the text says, the Lord was not in the wind. After the wind, there was an earthquake. And the metaphor of God is fairly easy here. God is like this strong force that shakes us inside and outside of us. Makes sense? But the Lord was not in the earthquake. After the earthquake, there was a fire. Okay, fire destroy, but also create new space where something else can be built. Death, resurrection, okay, that could work. Can go with that. But the Lord was not in the fire either. In all the mighty visible force of nature Elijah experienced, the mighty one was not present. So where was God in all of this? God was in the sound of sheer silence, says the text. Some of you might have understood that I'm an extrovert. I know it's hard to believe. Well, if it's true, if God can only be found in sheer silence, I just want to say, please kill me now, because I cannot stand still and in silence for 6 consecutive hours. I will go berserk, I will lose it. Okay, I grant you went a bit far with this statement, but I believe I'm not the only way that feels somehow this way. We live in a world where the busyness of our life and the myriads of responsibility leave little place for calm and silence. Between the ringing of the morning alarm to the spoken words we hear in the late night news, we're surrounded by noise that wants to attract our attention. For many of us, silence is a void that ought to be filled with activities and projects. Standing still and doing nothing else than listening could be viewed as suspicious. We feel we have to do something, anything, as long as it produces some sound to cover perceived emptiness. A few months ago, I read these wonderful articles about stunts performed by ministers to attract members in their church, and I said to myself, I need to keep this article because it will be useful in the future. Did I keep it? Of course no. Would have been too easy. But what I can still remember is the story of this minister in the US who would hold a worship service in an arena and then turn into rodeo mode and would rode a bull, like a real bull. And there was this other minister in the US, another man, who stayed at the top of a pole in front of his church for 30 days, not 30 hours, 30 days. And maybe you also have heard of this Roman Catholic priest in the Philippines who rode a hoverboard during his Christmas Eve Mass. It went viral on social media, especially after it was suspended by his bishop. Well, in our congregation, we might not be ready to go to these extremes, but many of us believe that if we publish a beautiful and catchy ads in the local newspaper, start playing jazzy music during our worship services, or organize dynamic and interactive biblical studies on Facebook, well, we will fill the pews. If we can only make enough noise, do something spectacular that would attract the people's attention, well, they would come to our youth and adult programs. The world will see our close relationship with the Holy One, if only we could develop this perfect soundbite. You know, like the one the politicians and the advertiser use to get our attention. You know, catchy, few words. And some of us have tried to do this. However, despite our best intention, with time we almost inevitably have discovered that God is not in the spectacular stunts nor catchy sound bites. Where can we find God? Is the only one exclusively accessible in pure and total silence? I don't believe this is what the message is here. Rather, I would like to invite you to imagine a garage, maybe your garage, maybe the garage of someone you know, that is completely filled with objects, like fill. Can you visualize this? Okay. All that stuff, some objects are useful, while others are just junk. And in some days, when we're looking for something specific, all that we can see are the few big, huge objects in our way. And sometimes we get frustrated because there's so much clutter in this garage that we believe it's almost impossible to find anything. Well, our lives, our congregations are somehow like this. Our existence are often filled with so much noise and activities that we only hear the headlines, those who speak the loudest, or the great tragedies of our world. We are frustrated because we cannot find the presence of God. Sometimes, like Elijah, we have learned to be patient. We need to look beyond the spectacular events and tragedies surrounding us. We need to find the courage to shed and let go of everything that belongs to the past and start to clean up and organize our lives. And usually we discover during those mundane moments that God is speaking to us. In fact, we discover that God never ceased to speak to us, but we were unable to hear because of all the clutter, because we were not paying attention, we were looking for something spectacular or a magic solution, or because we let ourselves distracted. But when we allow ourselves to create empty space, holy moments, we can discover that God is most often just in front of us all that time, just waiting for us to connect and to be in a relationship. When we wonder where is God in all of this, in a tragedy, we are invited to recall the prophet Elijah, who at one point felt discouraged, alone, and forsaken by God. If God cannot be found in the big, the spectacular, and the noise, we are called to remember that Holy One is revealed in the ways sometimes we expect the least. We need to find the courage to proclaim that regardless of the event, how horrible, painful, and puzzling they could be, God is present in our world and will never be shut down. For this, thanks be to God, and amen.